Um, so today, actually, this is our last Hackorona webinar, and today we have Lionel with us. So I'll let him present himself. So how are you, Lionel, today?
I'm very good. Thank
Great.
you. Under the circumstances, of course, but I'm good.
So are you alone or?
So I'm streaming to you live from Yafo, where I can promise you they're working on the light train that one day we will have in Yafo and Tel Aviv, because I hear them working outside. They're keeping all the health measurements, I believe, and I hope. And I'm spending this quarantine with Nitzan, my partner, who is actually a coder, which is why I feel comfortable around you guys. I do not speak the language fluent, but I know that there are different coding languages and how much effort it is to learn all that and practice and communicate and work and engage with each other. And I know that for some of us, it's easy peasy going remote. And for some of us, it's a little more difficult or strange or new. But actually, it's kind of the same with offline online, and that's what we're going to talk today. I'm going to try and share a little of my experience and my knowledge of how to kind of go about life in these worlds of online and offline.
Sounds good. So look forward to hearing that. So I think I'm gonna step back and hand it over to you.
You're not
So
going too far, right?
the virtual stage is yours. What? Sorry?
That's great.
Great.
Um, and I see we have Kalo, Avi, and Ron Balter, and Michal. You're all welcome to introduce yourself, say a little more, where you are right now, who are you spending your quarantine with, and I'll, in this next 24 minutes, kind of try and share a little from my experiences, both online and offline. And I think the best way to start is putting on some talk show music, because this is hopefully will be more of a talk show and less than a webinar. Why? Because we have so many of those these days, and it will be really great to start communicating more. And one of the things that I've been doing over these past few years is starting the 248 Global Action Network at the partnership unit of the Jewish Agency, where the idea is to connect global Jewish doers. You're in Tel Aviv and you're quarantining alone, and that's Ron. Ron, what's the most difficult thing about quarantining alone? And also, what's the best way about quarantining alone? And I promise to share my positives and negatives. And this is actually a feedback form that we use, which is called PNI, positive, negative, and interesting. So maybe y'all can share with us what's the positive about quarantining and your situation. In this case, Lon is alone. And then what's the negative thing about this? And what's interesting about all of this? I want to share with you all that a few days ago, I hosted the partnership of Minneapolis and Rehovot. There is a partnership between those cities. And we were hosting a professor from Weizmann Institute who was saying that in research world, before then, people were researching based on interest. And something that's very interesting that had happened with COVID-19, coronavirus, is that people are now researching based on mission. And I feel that Hackorona is very similar to this. Your community in day-to-day is a community of practice, a community of colleagues, of people who are like-minded and that are sharing knowledge and experiences and getting together and meetups for these. And we're going to talk about events and online events and kind of online offline events, because that's again one of my specialty areas. But the interesting thing is that now we're all mission driven, and we also, for the first time, we all live a very similar experience kind of all over the world. And I think that's something that's interesting now because it allows us to connect and network and engage with people, other people, or people that I've known from before around this issue. And that's what you guys have done with the Hackorona. But then also it allows us and will allow us for the remaining time, for the foreseen time in the future, to kind of go back to this experience. At the beginning, I was kind of saying that if 9/11 was this for our generation before, so then now this will be the milestone and the reference point. One question: isn't this webinar about modeling diseases with Python? This is not the one. I think that one had already happened or will happen, and I'm sure Idan can respond on Facebook. Here I see him logging in to answer.
Yeah, it was yesterday.
That was yesterday. And is there any way to recap that? Is there any way to watch that?
Go ahead and check out the recording. You can find it in the in.dev community.
So
Facebook.
in.dev community, and Idan, maybe you can post the link and everyone can go and watch that, because actually Idan had told me backstage, and yes, there is a backstage for online events as well, that people were really fascinated about that one, and I apparently recommend. I wouldn't understand a word there. And I see some people writing that they're from Tel Aviv and Haifa, and I believe it's Lon who has also responded and said that you're in Tel Aviv quarantine alone. It's totally fine. Just after 2 weeks, I need to refresh my environment. So background and virtual environments is something that we've seen over the last few weeks. And I will, in a few minutes, want to share with you how we go about our personal environment. And I'm a big believer in content. You know what? We'll jump into that now. So let me share my screen. This is not a presentation. This is just some websites and slides. So this is me, Lionel Mitelpunkt. You're welcome to visit my page. There's some interesting content here about the things that I've done and some projects that I've been. This is Merachok, a company that me and Re'i Dishon have started. When this started, the coronavirus, we're Corona entrepreneurs. And one thing I want to talk to you is about being ourselves, because everyone else is already taken, and we can see many different visuals of this right here. I'm going to stop my screen share, and I want to talk to you about content diet. So these days, everyone is kind of familiar with diets, why we need positive nutrition, why nutrition is very crucial to what we do. But I think that engagement starts with oneself. And the type of engagement that I'm talking about is the engagement that we regularly do with content. It could be over our phones, computers, virtual reality sets, whatever it is. My premise is that the content that we consume is as important as the food that we eat. I see some people commenting that the great webinar yesterday, you should, again, go and check that. But today I want to talk about engagement. And this is quite difficult for me. And this is why I want you to be writing on chat if you're watching this, because I believe in creating engagement. How do we go about the world connecting one to another? And we're seeing a lot of notices about social distancing. But in fact, one thing that that I want to share is that this is physical distancing and not necessarily social distancing. And I know that it's an oxymoron, but this is an opportunity to connect with humanity, and humanity over the thousands of years that we're around. We've been creating content. I know this is harder for parents, and I realize that when you have children and you have to be taking care of them, it's more difficult. But engaging with content is a way for us to engage with humanity. And I would recommend kind of listening to podcasts and going to read the articles in your subject matter, but then don't just read or listen to that. Reach out to that person. One thing that happened with COVID-19 is that when this all started, we all had full calendars. We had events that we were about to attend. We had the Seder that we had to get ready for and go to. And all the meetings in the world that we have so many meetings are now canceled. We still have some forms of virtual, but this is actually the best time to reach out to the people that you have ever wanted to talk to. And if you don't have someone in mind, then I recommend you make someone your person to go to and figure out if they will be willing to give you the time of day to ask everything you ever wanted. It could be personal, it could be fitness, it could be food related, and to your subject matter, it could be coding. This is a great time to find the people that have similar passions and interests, because you can never know who the person that you're sending a cold email to or answering to a WhatsApp on a WhatsApp group and taking the conversation to private, or answering on Facebook to a post, that person might become your partner. And I'm giving Re'i as an example because what I did very early on was to give kind of an audio Facebook. I don't know if you know, but on mobile you can do live audio, not just live video. And I went online and I shared a little about my point of view. My general point of view is that we live in a generation that I call Generation Cloud. It's the first time that we're all connected through the cloud and we all live under the same sky. And we know that there are entrepreneurs who want to take us out of this planet. So this is a unique time and place before COVID-19 and especially now. And networking is something very important. So I posted that audio live, and Re'i used Google Transcribe Live, which is a mobile app that you can use, and I'm sure Microsoft has similar tools on the cloud. And you can go and transcribe, and I actually recommend Otter. Otter AI is a wonderful tool that I love to kind of take everything that you're saying. You can use it for meetings, you can use it for content that you're creating, and that will transcribe. And he transcribed what I was saying and shared it with me, and I realized that that's a person that speaks my digital language and my personal language. What we started doing is figuring out how to combine engagement methodologies and community methodologies. For example, participatory and art of hosting. In Hebrew, it's called Manigut Ishtatfutit, which the person that kind of introduces me to this is Maya Rimel. That basically says we have tried to give answers so many times, but the actual way to bring people and engage them in conversation is asking questions. So if you're watching this, and there's 8 people watching us now, please write a question that you have at this moment. A question. It could be, what the hell is this guy talking about? It could be, what is your favorite technology? It could be, is there a tool that you would really recommend to use these times? Is there a way to create engagement that we haven't thought of? And I want to share with you two tips for Zoom calls and video conferencing. You could do this on Teams video as well. And I created a game. I created a game for Zoom because I felt the need for 2 things. One is to bring people on camera when a lot of people were off camera. And I find that you can ask people to turn on their camera and it will work. And the second thing is I created a game. So we all probably know the game of memory game. And if you have a Zoom call and you have many people on the call, you can ask everyone to turn off their screens, and you can ask them to take a pen and paper, which is something that I highly recommend to have next to you, and especially bald markers. And you can write to people on chat to do a pattern. So I will ask someone to do a circle. I will ask 2 people. And I will ask 2 other people to do square. And if it's people you're working with, this could work great. So I'm stopping my camera for 1 second. And let's say I was called on and I was given a pattern. And here, I'm a circle. Now imagine another person having this. And we're creating a light, fun memory game for this conversation because we tend to jump into the matter or avoid it until kind of the last minutes of a meeting. And I say, let's treat calls as if it's a television live show. So if you're a team leader, now is the time to find the host in you and be hosting your staff and give place to every member of your staff at least once and kind of ask them where you're taking this call from. What are other things that are on your mind? Because one thing that I speak to a lot of people who have hard skills is soft skills. And soft skills is everything from making sure that before we start the call, we check in with people, kind of where you are at, and if there's something big on your mind. We never know who is the person on the other side of the call, and you might think you know them. You might think you know everything about them. But if someone just got sick in their family, whether it's COVID-19 or not, is something that will influence us. And I think something about this video calls allows for more intimacy because all of a sudden we see the person in their own environment and we can ask more questions. We can get to know each other. You can tell your team to have one-on-one meetings and strengthen the bonds there. A lot of teams that work remote, their way of working is working remote during most of the time, and then every once in a while, the company will endorse a retreat and allow them to go and retreat and get to know each other and also get work done. Because we've seen with Hackorona, it's incredible to have 1,400 people signing up as participants, and there were over 90 groups that have submitted projects. Now that's only in a short amount of time when there's a mission that everyone is following. And I've had the opportunity to discuss some of these projects. And I think the beautiful thing was how people got connected and how their passion came into fruition and expertise. But this is about networking. And I know that many times people don't like conferences, and a lot of us are introverts or extroverts. So I want to recommend 2 tools because this is a time to also get to know ourselves. One is called the Myers-Briggs exam or personality tests, and you can find a great website that's called 16 Personalities. And you can take the time to discover a little more about yourself. And I think it's a great time to do this. The other tool that I've had the opportunity to kind of learn more about myself, actually share with the teams that I've worked with, is the DISC assessment. DISC assessment gives us a little more about, I thought someone was writing on chat. No. DISC assessment allows for people to see if we're more on the strong, assertive side, or are we more of the interpersonal kind of people? Are we more compliant? Do we need more order? Or are we a little more chaotic? And I think it's a great time to learn ourselves and how we work. And it's a great time for teams to do this together and then have conversations about this. I know productivity and effectiveness are really important, but sometimes we need to take the time to have conversations. Sometimes we need to slow down and retreat. And I think this time calls for all of us to do so. So combining asking who we are with what's our passion makes us do things, makes us create ourselves and be more creative. Creative is about creating myself, my passion, and doing something about everything that's bubbling inside me. And I think for teams, it's very important not to just look at tasks, but actually get to know each other. If we want a good team that communicates. At this point, I want to see if there's any questions. Because if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. Anything about engagement. And if not, I want to talk a little about networking. Because a lot of times we are talking about networking as if it was a thing that we have to do. And in some shape, it is. But networking is not a verb. Networking is a mindset. And once this kind of fades away, we will all go back to events. And actually, what we're trying to do is allow for people to still have their events. So whether it's creating a talk show for your family or your teammates and kind of hosting each other, whether it's doing a D&D session and getting a dungeon master to kind of run for our team, Yom Gibush. You know how Yom Gibush became this thing that the company has to do and kind of run through it? Have we ever thought about virtual Yom Gibush? We can do that. And yes, I do play Dungeons and Dragons and I love it. And I think it's a great way for me to learn a lot about myself and how I interact with other people. And it's a great way for teams to kind of take a moment, do something that isn't the ordinary, and break into that as well. And why do I think that's connected to networking? Because in many events that I go to, and I'll use the Jewish angle for this, or the Burning Man angle. I'm a burner. Ree, my associate, is a burner as well. I come from the Burning Man global community in Midburn here in Israel. And one of the things that we do there is following kind of the principles of Burning Man, we radically self-express. And once you're used to just being yourself in these environments, you find like-minded people. And like-minded people can be in any circumstances. But in order to do that, you have to allow your quirk to go outside. So I just shared that I love Dungeons and Dragons. I also love virtual reality. I also love Burning Man. And I would love for people to engage with me over any of those. Now, I want to ask you guys, there's 9 people who are watching us, what's your quirk? What's the one passion that you kind of would love to talk about always at any open moment, but don't really because you don't know how people are going to take this? I want to promise you that if you're in an event with more than, I don't know, let's say 250 people. So they say 150 is kind of the size of a village back in the days. That was the size that could be contained, and for people to really know each other and for that ecosystem to work well together. If you're in an event with more than 250 people, you have a group. You can find your crew, the people to engage with. And this can happen online. Now, you're not responding on chat, so I will be quiet for 35 seconds and ask you to share your quirk. What is the one thing that you can talk about at any given moment and you would love to do so? If it's Shachar Chasson videos and kind of, or any TV show, right? Game of Thrones was a quirk for so many people for a very long time. And it was very fun. And it kind of separated the world. Now COVID-19 is everything that we talk about. But as so many people encourage us not to go and watch news all the time and talk about this, I want to ask you, what's your quirk? So please write on chat, what's your quirk? What's the thing you like to talk about no matter when, what, or how? Anyone? Any one of our viewers, what is your quirk? the one thing you like to talk about at any given moment. This is why lives are a little difficult. Idan, will you share with us what's your quirk?
Um, I think I'll give the audience the opportunity to
You'll
comment.
give the audience the opportunity. Anyone from the audience? Are there any burners with us? Are there? Math! Yes, okay, so this is a great one. I don't know who wrote this. Idan, maybe you can help me because I'm not seeing who wrote this, but I would love to talk to you about this because I know nothing about math, but I've seen people go off quirks on math, whether it's math jokes, whether it's kind of figuring out and remembering equations from university. And I was sitting there and I was like, what is happening right now? While these people sitting together were geeking out on the thing that they love so much. And I love to watch this. And I was fascinated by that because I'm not your math type. I'm more of a words kind of guy. I think you got that. Lon, you're the one who said you love math. I would love to hear what do you have a math story of the time that you kind of went on the quirk with someone? And let me see. Ron, you've been very engaging and I enjoy that a lot. So Idan, I hope that's fine, but I invited him on the stream. And let's see if Ron picks it up. I sent you a private message. And if this will be allowed, then we will have this short conversation because Ron, you're out there and you've been watching and you love math and I know nothing about math, but I would love to talk to you about it. And it's a way for me to connect with you and engage. And it's not because you're alone in quarantine, but that just kind of makes it better. And if you're watching us and have no idea what I'm talking about, then you should go on the group of in.dev community, Senior Developers Israel, and see that there is a community of 1,100 people, members, who are senior developers or friends of. I sent it on, you probably have it on other on Facebook in your messages. We have 7 people watching us. I have some friends who have done likes. Sapir, you're the best. And we also have Yanai and Adaya and Doron and Roi. And I don't know if you're part of the community or not, but I would love to know more about you. And this community has just made something incredible, which out of this, we are hopefully going to see some technology that spurs and does something positive, which is in line with the mission-driven times that we live in. We all want to do something about this, and doing something about this COVID and engaging with other people is what will make us resilient. If we now reach out to the person that we always wanted to reach out to, will give us an advantage for when we step out of this. I became a Corona entrepreneur, not because I just identified the opportunity. I have been an entrepreneur, a mentor in many ways, shapes, or forms for many years now. And when this started, I realized that there's value that I can bring. I've had more than 3,000 hours on Zoom just over the last few years. And I just realized that I want to help people adapt to this. For me, remote is kind of the go-to way of doing things. And I really believe that other people are now joining what was needed. Um, Superior is the best. Maybe you can jump online and say more a little. Who's here?
Hey.
Say hello.
Idan? Idan and Ron.
Oh,
Ron, we can't see you, but I know you're here.
yeah, I'm here. My laptop is closed. I'm sorry.
Yes! How are you, man?
I'm fine, thank you.
How did you get to in.dev?
I saw it online about a week ago and decided to try. Why not?
Are you a developer?
Yes.
What type of development do you do?
Any type of development, actually.
You're one of those super coders, right?
I
I,
wouldn't say so, but maybe.
I don't know if it's COVID-19 or my smell is funny, but I smell something about you kind of knowing how to code all of those. So you were engaging over chat. How does that feel like? How is that something that you're used to?
What do you mean? Oh, when I commented you in the chat?
Yeah.
Well, I saw you were talking and you wanted some answers from people. So I was willing to answer your questions.
And I thank you for doing that.
No problem. And yeah, sorry.
So what made you respond? I'm assuming that there's some people who are watching this
You.
and are kind of me. What
Yeah.
about what I did?
How you did it?
How I did it. So what it was the energy, and I'm not trying to find the compliments. I thank you for them, but I'm not trying to reel them in. I'm trying to really figure out so that other people can make what would be your style, Ron?
What do you mean my style? In what?
In engaging with other people and making them respond to you.
Ah, I think trying to convince them that they want to answer what I'm saying or paying attention at all. Like
And that's
to
what,
catch their attention. That's what you need.
and I promise you did that with math. So what do you love so much about your math and
And
why?
it's just beautiful. You know, it's some people say people invented it. You know, like the humanity. I think it's more of natural, but
And
it's our understanding of certain things, right? And it just amazes me every time.
do you have a story where math connected you with other people?
um, well, yes.
Please share it with us.
I prefer not to.
That's fair. It's interesting though, but it's fair.
But even I don't know when I was studying computer science, so you study a lot of math. Um, there are people that I met that just by talking with them about math and seeing their perspective, how they understand things, and if you feel the same, and if you think in the same or even in a different manner, but that you can understand, because the main thing about math is understanding it. That's why you always get confused, I think, when people are geeking out about math. You just don't understand what they are saying, but they are eager with it. They are passionate because they
Yeah,
understand each other. That's why I think math is just a tool for people to commute when they understand each other.
that's
That's
amazing.
that's what I think.
And I agree, and I thank you for joining us. That's exactly what I'm saying about quirks. We might not understand how that person, like how that's a quirk. Like that's not a real thing. D&D is not a real thing. Like what's up with all your fantasy and you being talking halfling and whatever. But it's a thing, and there's a lot of people who are following such things as you say math, or do you have another quirk?
Soccer, yeah, football.
Soccer. What are you doing nowadays when there's no football?
watch recordings of finals.
So one of the things that I was waiting for, and actually happened quite fast. I was waiting to see who's gonna do this. I was waiting to see professional athletes play virtual games, and the NBA actually had that tournament where
Yeah.
16 superstars were playing virtual games,
They
2K20
had
in that
such,
case.
I'm sorry, they had such a tournament in the Spanish league too, between teams in FIFA 20, and
So
all the
that
money was donated to fight COVID-19.
So that's exactly where I say quirks and communities and publics of interest. It's not even a community; it's a public of interest. Um, are very exciting for me, and the way to engage people is to ask them to share that with us. And when someone is passionate, it doesn't matter what they're passionate about. It's out. Like, you see the energy of the person, and it will make you engage or not depending on your personality. But then I find that many times those with a lot of energy will make those with more contained energy, let's say, draw to the back, and then those people will find each other. And I think that's something that we might be missing now that we're quarantined. And you mentioned that you're quarantined alone, but we're going to get back to events, and there are virtual events. I'm attending tomorrow Berlin Startup Meetup, and if you're interested, feel free to contact me, and I'll share more about how online events of that kind can be happening right now. But I want to thank you, and I want to share a last tool, and then Idan, I think our time is kind of up.
Thank you, Lionel.
Lon, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you're well and staying safe. And I thank you for coding whatever you're coding and staying safe wherever it is. And I hope
you the same.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And when this is over, we should meet and hang out. Last tool that I want to share to make things more engaging and fun and kind of interactive. A friend of mine shared with me the Snap camera. Who knew that Snap allowed their camera to work on webcams? So this one would be for you, Lon. I don't understand anything, but if this is funny, please tell us. And or if this is like not appropriate, also, again, I wouldn't understand. But you can also kind of put it like this. Oh, that's a dyno. It's not math. No. But there's all kinds of things that you can put and make conversations more interesting. And I was a scout מדריך, כאילו מדריך בצופים. And you would have asked kind of, or in many conferences and stuff like that I've attended, so you say your name and an animal that starts with it. Now, I have mine in the back, or I can have mine like this. And we can have other conversations with each other and pick the interest. And I know children are around us, and sometimes we think that they're a disruption. But if we include them, then we're engaging with them, we're interacting, and we're letting people into our life, which is something that kind of immunes us from social distancing. This is physical distancing, not social distancing. So we might be Merachok, but we can still feel Mekarov, and that's what I invite all of us to do. I ask all of us to stay safe, follow regulations, and care for one another. That's the most important thing.
Okay, great. So thank you very much, Daniel.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Stay safe and happy Passover.
Thank you. Chag Sameach.